Our pal Jalen Rose joins us now from Miami. Jalen, let's cover the Miami part of things first. Eric Spoelstra is going to have his team's attention after what went down in Game 2. Who can he turn to for more offense in the rest of this series?
Well, that's the elephant in the room. That has to be Bam Adebayo. And the thing about it is a level of aggression. He's a terrific ball handler for his position. He does a terrific job defensively switching out on the perimeter and being the anchor on that end of the floor. But they will need his points if this is going to be a long series. But this is the other thing that his teammates can also do. You got to find a way to feed him. Did you see late in the game when Duncan Robinson came in, how Jimmy was just feeding him like a Wu-Tang album to try to get him shots? That's what they have to do for Bam Adebayo. I remember distinctly Tyler Hero was on a break, and he had an opportunity to either lob it to Jimmy or throw it back to Bam. He bounced it to Jimmy, and it was an ugly play. So you got to feed the big fella also. He has to be more aggressive, but I think he has to be a difference maker for the Miami Heat.
Maybe needs to look for his, is what Jalen's saying here, more moving forward. Jalen, on the other side, it was a dominant offensive showing here for the Celtics, 6 players in double figures. And, of course, Jason Tatum was great and Jaylen Brown was, but Marcus Smart was the story here. How did his presence on the floor open things up for everybody else?
Because we know about him being a defensive player of the year, but I've been saying this for years. He's the Celtics' best passer, double-figure assists, but also he led the team in steals. So what does that mean? For years, the Celtics were looking for love in all the wrong places. The Kyrie years, the Kemba Walker years, that's the white-collar score-first point guard. But Marcus Smart was sitting there the entire time. And when they invested in him, and he took a leadership role, and he challenged his teammates earlier in the year. And then you bring back Al Horford. So they build from within and reinvent from within. You bring back Horford. Now you have Smart at the point. Are you old enough to remember when people said that they should break up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown?
Of course.
That's probably like one of the craziest storylines of the entire season that certain people were saying, and I'm pretty sure some of them probably were Celtic fans. So now all of a sudden you have no White playing because congratulations, I hear he's having a baby today, but Pritchard gets more minutes. He scores in double figures. Now Grant Williams doesn't have to start because Horford is back. He goes back to the bench. He has double figures. So the Boston Celtics look like the better team, the deeper team, and the more talented team. If you really look deeper into the Miami roster, they have around 8 undrafted players. Starting backcourt, Strus and Vincent, undrafted. Jimmy Butler, creative offensively. Tucker, is he going to be available for the next game? Bam Adebayo has to get him offense. Tyler Hero, the 6th man of the year, has to get him offense. But tonight is about celebrating the Boston Celtics, a team in the first half that was down 10 and ended up being up 25.
Yes.
That's a dominating performance by the Celtics. And when you get a whipping like that, KC, it's going to leave a mark.
70 points in that first half, too, for a team that prides itself on its defense. Jalen, before we let you go, I want to ask you about a guy you just mentioned, Grant Williams. He had the game of his life in Game 6 against Milwaukee, 19 off the bench tonight. When you get that kind of contribution from a player off the bench, how impactful is it to a team like the Celtics?
It's major, but let me tell you what allows that to happen. When you're playing against guys that come off the bench initially versus the starters, it just changes the dynamic of his role. I remember watching him in the first game. He was frustrated. He was talking back to the coach. He was falling on the floor. And there was a time where he had 5 fouls and 5 points. Now you bring him in off the bench. He doesn't have to play that role. And now all of a sudden he can ease into his offense, get a couple of finishes, and he has a great game off the bench.
We got great analysis. We got a Wu-Tang reference out of my man Jalen Rose in Miami tonight. Thanks, Jay.
Wu-Tang for the children.
Hey, Jason Tatum had 27 in this game, but this may well be known as the Marcus Smart game moving forward. He was spectacular, talked about his poise when things got spicy. What impact do you think Marcus Smart had on the game?
Well, I think he had a profound impact because everybody's looking at his offense. What I'm looking at is his defense and the level of toughness he reinstilled in the Boston Celtics following their Game 1 debacle. Remember, they had a halftime lead. What happens in the third quarter? Miami comes out with a 22-2 run, outscores them 39-14 in the third quarter, completely punked the Boston Celtics in the third quarter of that game. Well, Marcus Smart is saying that ain't going to happen on my watch. So he comes in Game 2 and he makes sure to reinstill a toughness, the defensive identity, the things that that got them here to begin with. It was nice to see his offense, make no mistake about it. But the way the Boston Celtics were rolling, even before halftime, showed you what they're capable of offensively. Defensively is what you were looking for from Marcus Smart. And he showed up from opening tap and made sure everybody else did as well. And from that standpoint, the Boston Celtics definitely ran away with it.
Stephen A., we want to resist the urge to be a prisoner of the moment, but Miami looked pedestrian, Jimmy Butler notwithstanding. What was exposed in Miami tonight?
That Jimmy Butler has no help offensively. That's what this really comes down to. Tyler Hero is the reigning sixth man of the year, but Boston is the top defense. Bottom line, Miami's a top 5 defense as well, but Boston's defense is elite. Make no mistake about it. When they get rolling, they're like a bunch of piranhas. They come at you, and there's very little that you can do about it unless you are a star. Jimmy Butler's that guy. So he follows up his 41-point performance in Game 1 with 29. But Tyler Hero wasn't there. Gabe Vincent wasn't there. Bam Adebayo, don't know what the hell is wrong with him. He can definitely play the game of basketball. An elite defender, I might add. But offensively, pedestrian doesn't begin to describe him. He's not attempting enough shots. Some of that are them not getting him the ball enough. Other times, he's not taking advantage of the opportunities that are available to him. So Jimmy Butler is a lone ranger. He's all by himself, getting minimal help, if that, at all. And if that continues, this series is going to be over in 5. They better help Jimmy Butler. Otherwise, the next time I'm back here, the Boston Celtics are going to close them out.
It certainly seemed like that here after Game 2. Stephen A., how about the resiliency of the Celtics? They lose Game 1 in this series. They lost Game 1 to Milwaukee. They won Games 5 and 6 in that series as well. Where does that resiliency come from?
From their defense. They know when all else fails, they can stop anybody. That's the thing that has made the Boston Celtics force us all to give them the recognition they so richly deserve. Udoka is doing a sensational job as a first-year coach. We understand his pedigree is that of a championship one, coaching under Greg Popovich all of those years. He understands what it takes. He's been in these moments before, albeit as an assistant, and he's really instilled that culture in the Boston Celtics. Remember, they had an opportunity to avoid the Brooklyn Nets the last week of the season. They did not do that. They wanted Kyrie and KD. They said, who the hell are they? We will handle them. And that's exactly what they did. They swept them. They go up against Giannis Antetokounmpo, the reigning defending NBA champion. They said, we'll bounce them out too, albeit helped by the absence of Chris Middleton. And now they're going against the Miami Heat. And no matter how elite Miami's defense is, the Celtics are saying, our defense is the defense that everybody should be worried about. And they're showing it throughout this series as far as I'm concerned, and they certainly showed it in Game 2.
Defense was great. The offense was great. 6 players in double figures, 24 for Smart and Brown, 27 for Jason Tatum. Stephen A. Smith from Miami here tonight on Sports.